Hi, and welcome to the Collector's Maze interview series. I'm Tim Abrams. I'm here with Dominic Pace. He is a actor. He's done his list is just so crazy. On his IMDb, it just goes forever. But you might know him for the most recent stuff he's done in The Mandalorian. Of course, Star Wars is one of the biggest thing, even behind him right now. Star Wars banner and everything. So, Dom, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, and hello to all your listeners. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Well, we really appreciate you stopping by and talking to us. Is there so I kind of like to start these by just getting a general history of how you got into acting and everything like that. So what's your story?
Sure. I'm originally from New York, White Plains, New York. I was born and raised in Ossining, New York, about 40 minutes north of New York City. When I was 16 years old, my mother, when we had chores, used to play all these musical records. And I used to be handsome, if you can imagine it. So I was a good-looking Italian-American boy at 16. And what better musical than Grease? I think is one of the best high school musicals next to Bye Bye Birdie and West Side Story. And I auditioned for Zanny Zuko, 800 fellow students in the audience, plus faculty, coaches, parents. And the adrenaline rush I had was just second to none. When I was 18 years old, I decided to leave college. I asked my mom, I said, if it was okay. I was going to get a degree in communications. My sister was getting into communications. But for me, the acting bug and that adrenaline rush was calling me since the second I stepped on stage. So I started off Broadway. In Tony and Tina's Wedding, I stuck very close to NYU, Columbia University, doing student films. And ever since 2002, I moved out here with a film called For Love of the Game. I was with Kevin Costner, Kelly Preston, John C. Reilly, J.K. Simmons. I was a featured, instead of a featured bounty hunter, I was a featured baseball player, which was another childhood dream of wanting to become a Major League Baseball player. And ever since 2002 in Hollywood, I've had a steady diet of all those IMDb credits that you talk of. It's never been an easy road. I call myself a blue collar actor, to where you do everything you can in order to get by. And flash forward to 2018, lifelong Star Wars fan, absolute dream come true to have the opportunity to be a one-of-a-kind species, one-of-a-kind bounty hunter in this amazing hit series that's, I think, the most popular in the world right now, The Mandalorian.
Oh yeah, and it's just about to go to season 2. It's perfect timing. I mean, just going to there, I guess, what can you describe your character in the show? And kind of, I know you can try to describe what he looks like, but people won't really understand until they really see him, right?
Absolutely. Brian Sipe, who's actually nominated for an Emmy for the production, was the one who created me. He's the one who designed Gekko, and also Stephen Porro, who's also nominated for an Emmy. So Gekko could be an Emmy award-winning bounty hunter by September 20th, right, that day before my birthday. So we'll see what happens. But Brian Sipe headed up Drax, David Bautista, while he did Guardians of the Galaxy in Atlanta. And about 2 years prior to him working on me, he had a 100-pound female model that was the prosthetics they gave her was sort of similar to a gecko with bumps on its head, and also that paint pattern that you see in the front that is still applied to Gekko. Well, originally Gekko had bumps, but right after the screen test in front of Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau, and Deborah Chow, I politely went over to Brian, and I just suggested, being that I'm 6'4", I'm the size of Jason from Friday the 13th, I said, this guy, I don't think the Star Wars community has ever seen an imposing big bounty hunter before. I said, can you do something maybe a little bit more without bumps? Because bumps seem more like a diplomatic. You can see him maybe at a Senate hearing that the emperor is going to give. For me, as a bounty hunter, I wanted the biggest blaster, which I ended up getting to select myself, but also at the same time have a little bit more of a badass, maybe sort of a Zabrak feel to him. And thankfully, it was Brian's choice, but Brian was able to make that adjustment. The following Monday, I came into the makeup trailer and I saw the adjustment. But needless to say, without question, he is a one-of-a-kind bounty hunter, one-of-a-kind species, because Brian was inspired by something outside of the universe there.
Right. And it truly is. Like, Star Wars has always had this history of having awesome alien creatures and everything in it. And, I saw your character, and the first thing I thought was, all right, this is Star Wars. This is getting back to that original cantina scene that everyone loves. And you talked about,
Yeah, no, it's funny you mentioned that, because actually, for me, I thought they were doing such an amazing job. They originally had the mask on. They lost the mask. One of the assistants on the costume department misplaced the mask on the first day. And I said, as much as, maybe as a greedy actor, I could have said, oh, all right, well, I want to get my face in Star Wars. For me, it wasn't about that. It was about making the character Star Wars. I was just recently asked in a podcast in terms of how would you have Gekko speak, and I said I wouldn't want to be his voice. I would rather it go otherworldly to where it's sort of Huttese with a deep octave similar to Kylo Ren. So the more we can get out of this universe, the better I think it is for the character. But just the fact that I'm able to incorporate my eyes and my facial expressions through performance, that's more than enough for me. But the rest, I like to have it owned all by Star Wars, because I think that's what makes it transport so many viewers to another world there.
And you talked about already that you're a huge fan of Star Wars. Can you tell me kind of like your background in Star Wars before this and everything?
Sure. You know, I just can't say enough about just the magical moments of imagination I had during the 1980s with the original trilogy figures. I just now, my wife's probably going to kill me, but little by little, I was doing a 31 city tour with with all the comic book stores, and they had the last 1985 series, which I do not have. So little by little, I'm chalking it up as an investment for the kids, and little by little, I've been chipping away at that. But the original trilogy, collecting the Kenner figures for me has more of a resonance just because it's a reminder of childhood. I have beautiful memories at my grandparents when I was in Yonkers as a kid, also with my mother, you know, say cooking in the kitchen and such. There's a lot of more connection. I know a lot of people outside of collecting toys might think of it something weird, especially when you're over 40 or over 30. But for me, a lot of the connection happens to be with childhood and the memories we have with our family, with our friends, and not to mention the beautiful experiences we had in the movie theater with so many friends and family, not to mention the magic that we saw on screen with the likes of George Lucas, Spielberg, Richard Donner, Robert Zemeckis, the list goes on, Joe Dante, during that magical time in the 1980s there. Yeah,
I mean, you talk about how it's, you know, not an adult thing to collect toys or anything like that. I think now that COVID and everything that's happened with this, it's shown everybody that having a hobby like that isn't so bad anymore.
You know? Without question. Yeah, and I just mean to bring towards the light to see people that might be a little confused is that it's a deeper connection that is something that has more ground to it in terms of just not so much collecting a toy like the fact that we haven't grown up. It's the fact that we're connecting ourselves to the most innocent and beautiful time of our lives, which is more or less childhood for most of us.
Sure, and it connects you to a community as well. And I was going to ask you, I know right now we're not doing very many conventions or anything like that, but back in 2018 or even before, were you doing conventions and going around and showing people the character and everything, or?
Well, 2018, no. I mean, I had a muzzle on me there for a good year, but I did do a few conventions. I starred in a cheesy movie opposite legendary Michael Madsen in a film called Megalodon on Sci-Fi Channel, which I still get compliments to this day. It's kind of like that one you want to sweep under the carpet just because Sci-Fi Channel does some really, really low budget stuff. And sometimes their special effects, well, more often than not, looks about as cheesy as could be. But it wasn't until early of this year, January, my first one at Stockton Con in Northern California. I had butterflies, I remember, in the morning because I didn't know how I was going to be received. And the past year, after we called an audible due to all the conventions being canceled and doing all the comic book shops, I can't tell you how grateful I am for the fan base and also all the charitable organizations who have been so welcoming. It's the only franchise where you can get under a minute screen time and sort of have become sort of this sort of cult following, have this cult following or be a fan favorite, so to speak. And it's been a real dream come true. And I can't tell you how grateful I am for everybody.
Yeah, so speaking of that, you are coming here to Wichita. I know Collector's Maze is basically based out of Wichita, Kansas. And you are coming by here. Are you planning on doing a lot of those visits and things like that, or?
We have 11 visits throughout the country. Wichita will be very monumental for a couple of reasons. Number one, I believe that will be my last for the year 2020, as I'm going to be returning home, going back to work. The film industry is starting to open up. But also, I worked on a film that took 4 years to create and produce and get distribution, and it releases that day on October 6th. So a very special day for me. It's called Anonymous Killers. I star as Romero Scarinelli. It's about 5 killers trapped in a room. They don't know why they got there. It's a lot deeper than Saw or some kind of murder mystery. It has a lot more to do with just a social stance. I think everyone's going to walk away from it with a different opinion, which I think is absolutely beautiful. But we have 11 stops. We have Northern Washington State. We have Boise, Idaho, Salt Lake City, Utah, Portland, Pittsburgh, Boston, New York, Knoxville, Atlanta, Little Rock, Arkansas, and also Wichita there. So really a lot of fun stuff ahead. And we had such a great tour. I'm just it's unfortunate because my son accompany me on the first trip, but this is going to be rolling solo here. But I just can't tell you how grateful I am for the whole fan base, because they've sort of been like family on the road. I've been joking with my wife, calling it sort of a timeshare with friends, because once you're part of that Star Wars community, they've been so welcoming and inviting. I can't tell you how grateful I am for all of them.
Yeah, and at this moment, the Star Wars community is really seeing a lot of different things happen. It's very invigorating. How does it feel to kind of be part of that community?
It's been amazing. Of course, I'm holding my breath, because the ultimate dream, as much as I know, I've talked to so many fans and 501st members, and they say, oh God, I wouldn't mind if I was just a Banther fodder in the back of the screen. But I'll tell you, once you get that opportunity, you do want the icing on the cake, which is to get that action figure. I will tell you that we are in talks right now with Funko Pop. The dream is to hopefully be that rare 1985 figure or that blue snaggletooth of the Mandalorian series. So fingers crossed, but it's been amazing. We're just holding our breath, because, again, it's sort of such a humbling feeling to be a small side character that you just don't know when your 15 minutes, so to speak, will be up, or if it ever will be up, because, the Star Wars community keeps impressing me day after day. And I've talked to so many people. They said, dude, you're embedded the rest of your life. But I still can't believe it, because, again, anytime you get this limited amount of screen time, you feel like your last days are behind you. And I'm just hopeful that the future is bright for Gekko, and also that the fan base will continue to embrace me well after season 2 and 3 and such.
Sure. And I wanted to ask you, I'm not going to go ask for spoilers or anything about season 2. I know better than that. I don't mess with Disney ever. And I know not to. But so one of the questions I had was, did you guys film at all during COVID-19? Did you get all the filming done beforehand, or what was that timeline kind of like?
Well, I will say a couple things. Number one, they finished all of season 2. Number 2, I was part of a team where they had no plans for. Ultimately, I'd like to believe, and Brian and many fans would like to believe, that Gekko escaped Navarro. I can neither confirm nor deny, but let me just say that out of 25 creatures through those 2 weeks of filming, it was a mentality that I grew up with in terms of getting it done, creating your own content, creating your brand. And I did that to the best of my ability for 365 days. So now we're at a point where we're just going to see where the chips lie with the fan base. As opposed to back in the 80s, there was limited content. Now it's sort of an oversaturation in many ways. I know that Disney Plus has a lot to catch up on. So we'll just see how the chips fall out, just in terms. We'll see how the chips fall out, just in terms of having that extra content for the fan base and seeing where Gekko lies in the long run. I know that you had the original 6 bounty hunters where less than a minute on screen, just standing on a platform, became legendary. Zuckuss, Forlom, you've got Boss, where they started creating them into their backstories, into animation, into comic books and such, into different styles of figures, Black Series, Mini Lego, etc. So we can only hope the same for Gekko. The only thing with Gekko is that it was an uphill battle, in that originally they had no plans, but I don't think there's anyone in the first team cast that has had more enthusiasm, that has had more passion for their character, and also for the community as Gekko and myself there. So it remains to be seen, but like I said, I just can't tell you how grateful I am for the fan base, and can sleep well every night knowing I did everything I possibly could to get this character off the ground, and hopefully to the next level with the Star Wars universe.
Well, definitely the fan base loves it. They loved your look. They loved, even if you only have a minute screen time or so from that first time around, hearing that you're coming back and everything is awesome. It's just awesome to hear. I kind of wanted to ask you, and not to dive into spoilers or anything like that, is there a little bit of a philosophy that you can, or a headspace you get into when trying to play Gekko, or is there, you kind of just roll with it as best you can?
Well, just to give a sort of a lesson in terms of acting 101, it's about simplification. And as far as the directions that we had from the first and second assistant director, was a very specific objective. We actually didn't even know that it was the child at that time. I actually thought that it was going to be a backstory for either Rey, Poe, or Finn, which I thought was very interesting. I thought it was going to be an extra padded layer to the sequel trilogy, which personally I was really hoping for. I wasn't a huge fan of the sequel trilogy, even though I did enjoy it and accept it. I thought it would have been awesome to have seen maybe perhaps that Mando was holding Rey. So that's what I thought I was pointing my gun at. But it's all about simplification. And all of a sudden, once you have your objectives, the rest of your mind sort of clears. It's very similar to an athlete, to where, you know, especially a golfer, I would equate it to the most, to where you need to just get completely out of your head and be focused on that, the simplicity of that objective. So ultimately, that's what motivated me. I will tell you, it certainly helped having the legendary Carl Weathers voice in my right ear before the standoff. I think that was quite a bit of an adrenaline rush for me, being an Italian American, Rocky being one of the best franchise series of all time, and it wouldn't be as amazing without the legendary Carl Weathers. So to be able to flank him was such an honor, and automatically to just feed off his energy, his talent. 70 years old, just a legend, a Hollywood legend forever. Was just really something else there.
And so, yeah, you have such famous names on that set too, and everything. Even you mentioned Jon Favreau earlier. That would make me go insane just being in the same room as him. Yeah. Do you have any stories or anything while filming or on stage or anything fun to share?
Well, you know, I think I had the Star Wars fans' dream come true. You know, they have all these things set up at Galaxy's Edge to where whether you're a fan of Jedi, Sith, or bounty hunters, there was a table laid in front of me with the prop director, and he presented 20 different weapons. So just a dream come true that I wish every Star Wars fan could have at some point or other. I got to pick my own Star Wars weapon for the Galaxy, and that to me meant so much. With Gekko being 6'4", 260 pounds, I picked the biggest blaster. The two signatures is a curved mag down on the bottom and also a paintball canister. So many custom-made figure guys have been creating him left and right, which is just really hopefully a nod to Hasbro saying, hey, you know, get on the ball here. I mean, you know, this is, I don't know what the sales were for Solo, Rogue One, and the sequel trilogy, but no question, I think the fans are back to collecting, and I think there needs to be more presented as opposed to just Baby Yoda, the A-Team, and you know, Mando there for the fans. So that was certainly a dream come true. Day one, my first play set was a Cantina play set, so you can imagine stepping on set to inside a Cantina, a real Star Wars Cantina. Really kind of had me shaking there a little bit. Not to mention the first time I walk in, but none other than George Lucas is folding his arms at the bar, chatting with Favreau about the history of Mandalorian, something I was not too familiar with at the time. I didn't realize the depth of the Mandalorian. I watched the Clone Wars a little bit here and there, but I kind of started fading off. For me, I'm more of an original trilogy and prequel guy in terms of the lore and all the content. To be there with Carl Weathers, not to mention Dave and John were sort of centering this around old space western, and I'm standing off completely squared up against perfectly. You can see it in images with none other than the grandson of John Wayne, who did the majority of Mando's work. That's Brendan Wayne. So if you are doing the Comic-Con tour, for those listening, two other names aside from Pedro Pascal you need to get is a superhero himself, who actually is a superhero in real life, Lateef Crowder, who did all the amazing stunts that just sort of wowed us through season one, and also Brendan Wayne, who for the majority of the time was in that costume there. So make sure you get those names down for those autograph collectors, because those are two you definitely want to snag throughout the tours over the next few years.
For sure. And even during COVID and everything like that, there's still plenty of opportunities to meet those guys. They go out like you are to comic book shops and everything like that. It's never been a better time to be a collector. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you know, just so, I mean, that was one thing when I was going through all the comic book shops, I'll tell you, I mean, you had to catch the bug with one thing or the other. Thankfully, I haven't caught the bug with Pop because that could get pretty expensive, but definitely with that 1985 series. And again, what better time to support small businesses right now? Because comic book stores, in my opinion, are just as essential as any other business. They're mom and pops. They're families that have children and kids going through college. I just had the pleasure of meeting so many throughout the country, and I look forward to meeting 11 amazing owners over the next month here as well.
Well, they're going to love meeting you just by this conversation alone. I know that you are bringing some positive energy to everything, and I think they need that for sure.
Oh, no question. Yeah.
So talking a little bit more about your career, we don't need to get into the nuts and bolts, nitty gritty, unless you really want to, but we can, I was going to ask if you have any advice for inspiring actors or actresses or whatever.
Yeah. You know, the main thing is really, I mean, the way that I got this job was to stay grounded. Unfortunately, you know, a lot of people may have the perception of, okay, well, I'm going to hustle, and I'm going to get that big dream of being part of the top 1%. Well, I think we all want to get there, but also at the same time, you know, you could probably talk to a Major League Baseball player to where maybe, you know, the majority of them are going back up and down from the minors to the majors, from the minors. You know, I'm going back to the major leagues September 4th, but just for one day. So it really is a matter of staying grounded. And unfortunately, a big part of that formula is being able to take any job you can in order to keep your flexibility. This is not something to where, unfortunately, you can keep a full-time job and at the same time be able to make that audition tomorrow. My wife and I have been talking extensively because we're looking to leave Los Angeles to where, you know, we were able to keep the career going outside of California. Not a very easy thing to do unless you're in Atlanta or New York. So it's one of those things also you have to take into consideration is you need to be close by. They need you here tomorrow. You can't just say, hey, oh, let me put myself on tape. And if you want me, let's say, well, there's 20 guys right here online in person. They're not going to go with you unless you're a household name. So it's really a matter of staying grounded, finding some way or another to get to Los Angeles, New York, Atlanta in order to make it actually happen. And most importantly, staying grounded with odd jobs and taking any work you can. Luckily, we live in a time right now to where there's a tremendous amount of independent contracting to where you can work day to day, but also not have a set schedule. That is essential in order to keep the dream alive. That's what I've been able to do for 23 years. My wife has been very helpful as well. But make no mistake, it's really grit and grind, and that's hopefully what, in the end of the day, is what I hope that Gekko will stand for, because I find the similarities to a bounty hunter almost identical in terms of trying to get that next prize. And sometimes the money's big, and sometimes it's small.
Yeah, and I'm a video producer and a video editor here in Kansas, and I used to live in the Kansas City area and do it up there as well. That speaks volumes when someone is close by and they're ready to go. Like, oh no, last minute this actor dropped, I need someone else. You know, that kind of stuff, that really does come in handy.
Oh yeah, I booked a lot of shows because of that. You know, last minute, I remember NCIS, I still get paid to this day residuals because Navy NCIS continues to air on USA Network. It probably amounts up to maybe $15,000, $20,000 by this point over the course of, oh God, almost 15 years now, which sounds crazy. But literally it was a last minute thing. Hey, they wrote in an extra soldier co-star for this episode in the 3rd season. Can you make it down to Gower Studios right away? And I was right there. So yeah, that's what they need. It's a really run and gun kind of situation. Also, even getting yourself on tape. Don't wait for 3 days. You got to get it on right away because they're going to be seeing other talent there as well. I just booked this new movie with the director of photography. It's actually from a Netflix award-winning show called Roma. And we start filming on the 4th there. So, unfortunately, you got to be on point and you got to be prepared as well. Know the work, stay humble, stay grounded. That's a big thing too. Attitude. I've learned so much from even being around the likes of Hugh Jackman and Will Smith in regards to just having that positive, relaxed attitude and always coming to work with a good personality to everybody, not just the stars.
I love the casual name drops, by the way. Every once in a while, just put them in there.
Yeah, I mean, you know, they are the top of the cream of the crop. So it's just a lot of times, and I mention that because a lot of times people are like, oh, you got to get lucky. You've got to have a lucky uncle or this and that. Well, when you see these guys work, there's a lot of people that are examples, even women as well. When you see their work ethic, you understand why they're there. And now more than ever, there is no time for the diva mentality because they can replace you in 2 seconds. You know yourself, there's a lot of Netflix and Amazon shows where you don't need to have a star to head up that show. They just want people that are talented and that they can work with.
Right. So you talked a little bit about what's next for you. Can you go into a little bit more detail about maybe some projects you're working on right now or whatever's next?
Absolutely. Well, a few things. Well, Anonymous Killers, I'm really excited about. Again, this took 4 years to produce from the director, writer A.R. Hilton. And I couldn't be at a better time. You know, I'm not one to preach politics or social issues, but the one thing I love about this film is that no matter what side of the spectrum you're coming from, you'll be able to have your own, formulate your own opinion without being salty about the film. A lot of times films like to force their agenda down your throat, whether it's political or social. And the one thing I love with this is that it sort of presents itself. Do you believe that people that, you know, the only success in this country are those who come from privilege? Or do you believe that, hey, I don't care what ethnicity you came from, Italian American, African American, Latino, you create your own dream in this country? Or is a little bit of both, to where people are born with privilege and then others are in a situation to where it is difficult to get ahead, so they might lead to a life of crime, or they might lead to a life of maybe difficult decisions because they had no choice. This film is going to bring up those issues specifically. When you watch the trailer of Anonymous Killers, you can go to anonymouskillers.com. The first thing you might think about is, this might be just another Saw. Think again, and please give this film a shot, because I'll tell you, it goes a lot deeper than that. I think sociology professors are going to be talking about this film for quite some time. On the other end of the spectrum, we have a lot of fun here. September 3rd, starring Anthony Edwards. He's got his own show, Anthony Anderson, I'm sorry, called To Tell the Truth with Brad Garrett. It's Bob Saget and a couple other stars. I'm going to be, unfortunately, I filmed it when I was not recognizable. So it might be an easy thing for the fans to figure out. But I have that appearance on ABC September 3rd. It's called To Tell the Truth. And then we have this big inner workings right now with Funko and with Lucasfilm, to where my wife and I may be considering a very, very serious investment for all the collectors and all the fans of Disney, Funko, and Star Wars. This is going to be a pretty ambitious investment, but to where next year we might hold off in about 12 months to do maybe a 6-month tour around the entire country. Have the same agreement I had with the comic book stores, to where I give them a percentage as opposed to taking from them, to give back to help small business and also to help the inner charities of the Star Wars community, to where we're going to be hopefully selling that Funko Pop sign. So we will see what happens with that. And then a couple other feature films, one independent and one that is untitled right now, that I start filming on September 4th there. So some exciting things in the works, but just hopefully the whole country can get back on track here sooner than later. I've been hearing some good things, that COVID isn't as bad as they're saying, but who the heck knows? Hopefully we can get back on track sooner than later with all businesses, because that's the foundation of our country there.
And no one agrees more than us here at the Collector's Maze. And that's why I don't know how it all interworking, but we're helping your event here in Wichita on October 6th, 4 p.m., Prairie Dog Comics. It's probably one of my favorite comic book stores, if not everywhere. It definitely is the one here in Wichita. It's going to be a great time. I hope everyone can make it out to that. And really, that's all the questions, everything I had. But I do want to ask you, is there anywhere that people can follow you and find a lot of your work or updates or anything like that?
Sure. Dominic Pace all across the board: Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. The Facebook page for Gekko is Lair of the Gekko. I always appreciate people following that as well for any updates. And again, if this Funko Pop tour goes through, just an appreciation. Thank you to all the fans for coming out and adding Gekko to your collection. But like I said, that news will hopefully happen within a few months. It remains to be seen. But just ultimately, no matter what, just a genuine thank you to the entire Star Wars community, all the charitable organizations, for everything they've done for me in this past year.
Yeah. Well, we really appreciate it. And I look forward to maybe someday getting your Funko Pop, put it on my shelf, have a really nice background here. I'm going to put a shelf up here of all of them someday. But no, we really appreciate you stopping by and talking to us here at the Collector's Maze. We really appreciate it. And thank you, man. Really do.
Absolutely. All the best to you, and look forward to seeing everybody out in Wichita. If you Facebook Dominic Pace, and also, what is it, Wichita, what's the name of the store one more time?
It's Prairie Dog Comics.
Yes. Prairie Dog Comics, Dominic Pace, the event, and then go to events. Please RSVP, and look forward to seeing everybody there October 6th.